I'm Logan Webb, and you're listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the three-time world champion, San Francisco Giants. With hosts Chad King and Eric Nathanson. This is TortureCast.
A baseball legend, an American icon. Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid, was a true giant of his time. Born in Westfield, Alabama in 1931, Mays began displaying his athletic prowess at an early age. Before he even graduated high school, he was playing center field for the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues. In 1951, Mays emerged as a rising star for the then New York Giants. He won Rookie of the Year honors just 4 years after baseball's color barrier had been broken. For the next 23 seasons, his achievements would cement his title as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. In New York, he dazzled crowds at the Polo Grounds and led the team to a World Series championship. His charisma and joyfulness were infectious. He was often seen playing stickball with kids in the neighborhood. When the Giants moved west in 1958, he brought his exciting brand of baseball to a new audience in San Francisco. Making impossible catches, speeding around the bases, launching home runs, Willie's showmanship and style were undeniable.
Here's the pitch to Willie. Swung on, hit deep to left. That one is way back, way back, way back. Well, that's goodbye. Number 600 for Willie Mays and the bye-bye baby bonanza.
He was one of the greatest home run hitters of all time, with an incredible 660 career homers, even though he missed nearly 2 full seasons serving in the Army during the Korean War. He played in 24 All-Star games, tied for the most in National League history. He won 12 Gold Gloves and 2 Most Valuable Player awards. But his accomplishments off the field were also impactful. He remained a presence in the Giants clubhouse after his playing days, mentoring hundreds of young players. Forever a kid at heart, he also committed himself to supporting underserved youth throughout the rest of his life. Willie's impact echoes throughout the baseball community, from the tree-lined promenade of Willie Mays Plaza to the halls of Cooperstown. And in 2015, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom to honor his remarkable contributions to our country and its national pastime. As baseball endures, so do Willie's values of consistency, dedication, and courage. With an indelible mark on our hearts, he leaves us with a lasting reminder to work hard and find joy in this great game and this extraordinary life. Say hey, Willie Mays, the best there ever was.
Willie Mays, a titan of baseball's golden age. Man, he was defined excellence with his unparalleled athleticism and skill, known for his dazzling catches in center field. He really did revolutionize defensive play. He had 3,000 hits, 660 home runs, And really his influence transcended the diamond, leaving a mark on not only Giants fans, but really all sports fans, baseball fans in particular. But that was a wonderful tribute by John Miller and the San Francisco Giants to Willie Mays. Of course, as you all know, he passed away at the age of 93 on Tuesday, 2 days before the game at Rickwood Field. Welcome to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of Willie Mays' beloved San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me today are two guys who, boy, not only are Giants fans, but Willie Mays has meant a lot to each one of them. Willie Dills and Eric Nathanson. Willie, I just want to start with you. Just kind of give us your initial thoughts. I first want to say you did go down to the park and the Willie Mays statue the day after his passing and recorded a few minutes, which I did post separately, but I will post those thoughts at the end of this podcast as well. But just let it flow.
Thanks, Chad. Well, I honestly, he was 93 years old. He lived a long, very, very good life, but you just, I guess there was just something about him where I just kind of expected him to always be around, So even though he was 93, it was not the news that I was wanting to hear ever. Made me very sad. When I was a little kid, he was my favorite player. And I never watched him play because the legend of Willie Mays for the San Francisco Giants was that large, and didn't matter that I'd never seen him play. It was just, he was still talked about. I mean, obviously I was born in 1980. He had not been playing on the team for a long time. He retired in 73?
Yeah.
So, this is, I guess it's not that long, but it wasn't really until I was like 4 or 5 where I started really paying attention. So we're talking over a decade. But it was the stories. It was just the reverence that everybody had for this guy. And it wasn't until Will Clark came along that there was a current player that kind of, was as intriguing to me. But I read his autobiography over and over and over again as a little kid. And my favorite number to this day is number 24. If I get a jersey, that's the number I use. And he was just always be, my name is Willie. I don't know. It's just, yeah, he was a larger than life figure to me. And all the stuff that's coming out now, it's all stuff that I already knew. These are stories I've heard before a million times. But they're just nice to hear again. They're nice that people are still telling these stories. And it was funny with the broadcast we all watched on Thursday, the Rickwood game. They told the same story twice in that game, which was the Satchel Paige striking Willie Mays out with 3 straight fastballs story. But it didn't matter that we had already heard it before. I was like, right? Yes, let's hear it again, dude. Yeah. Tell it again. And that's just everything about him at this point is kind of larger than life, but the numbers are larger than life. I mean, these are not the numbers that you see people get anymore. These are insane statistics. And then you watch highlights and you go, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. He was the best. He was the best Giant and the best baseball player. And we had Barry Bonds. I still say he was the best Giant. So I'm gonna miss Willie, and I love him. And yeah, the scene at the statue was, like I said if everybody listens to this or the episode before this that Chad posted by itself, if you listen to that, you'll hear me say it, but I'll say it again. It was somber, but not really sad. Everybody was just there, all kind of standing around, very reverential of a great life, and got to hug a few Giants fans I'd never met before in my life. But it was a sweet moment. I'm glad I was able to do that. I was glad I was able to be there. If I'd have been in Austin, I would have been annoyed that I couldn't be there. But it just felt right. It felt like the right place to be. I ended up hanging out there for almost an hour, and I guess people were coming in and out all day. It's probably still happening right now, honestly. But it's just very, very cool to see everybody give it up for Willie Mays. So rest in peace, brother. That's all I got.
100%, man. And Eric, I know you have a a really strong connection with Willie Mays, and certainly through your father.
Yeah. Hey guys, let's be honest. I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it wasn't for Willie Mays. Uh, I wouldn't be a Giants fan. I wouldn't care about any of this if it wasn't for that man. That man triggered everything. My father watched him as a player in the Polo Grounds and fell in love. And then when he moved to San Francisco, all of the fans there understood immediately why people fell in love. And hearing that he passed, as I've talked about before, everybody knows my dad passed in 2012. But when I heard the news, it felt like that final piece of my dad kind of died, because he was my dad's hero, and so therefore became my hero eventually. And losing my dad 12 years ago and having Willie live on just always made me feel like there was a part of him still out there. So it was kind of just sad to have the reality of it. I don't know how you guys found out. I was literally coming out of the bathroom about to head into work when we were watching the Cubs Giants game. When we were watching the Cubs broadcast, because they're in Wrigley, wife's a Cubs fan. It's just what we do. And they announced it, and she was the first one to tell me. I didn't even hear them, and hugged me right away. And then I had to go to work, and I cried at work for like a half an hour to an hour. Anytime somebody came and interrupted me or anything, it was like, I hold on. And I just couldn't help it. I couldn't even watch the game anymore at that point. It was just so sad. And Willie had just such an impact, running around like Dills just said, wearing the number 24 whenever I can. I still to this day do it, using the number 24 with whatever I can. Even the email that I just sent you, the number 24 is connected. It's 24 and 25, Barry, Willie and Barry. So I totally understand the 24. So it hit me hard. It really did. I had a really rough night. I had to tip a few back for Willie later on that night, and sat outside just telling stories. And like you mentioned, Willie, a lot of the stories we heard, I'd heard already. And it was really fascinating to see how many people hadn't heard some of these stories yet. And Rick would really, really help fill in those gaps. So the timing of that was amazing. But I'm still sad. Yes, 93, you're never shocked when somebody at the age of 93 passes on. Heart failure, that's kind of how you want it to happen. You don't want it to be something that's painful or something that finally caught up to them. It means the man lived a good life and his heart just had enough. Before I kick it back to you, Chad, I'll mention one thing that my wife has mentioned. Women, I don't know, how anecdotal or true this is, but women tend to hold on longer for a celebration and then pass away after the celebration. Men have a tendency to die shortly before that celebration because they don't want a big deal made about them.
Wow.
And so I wonder if that's what happened here with Willie. If, he released that statement, what was it, Sunday, saying that he was not going to be able to be at the game, or Monday that he was not going to be able to be at the game, and then the next day he passed away. And it was just, the suddenness of that was shocking. But like Willie said, 93 years old, it was bound to happen. It's just sad that it happened.
Well, his son said he found another way to be here. I don't know if you remember that quote from before the game.
Yes, and he
I
was
don't
right.
know. I don't know. Right. Maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. So, Chad, what have you been going through for the past few days?
I was one of the reasons we haven't recorded for a couple of weeks, because I do all the recording and I was on vacation in Hawaii. So that was why we had a little bit of a break in our episodes. But I was at the airport in Hawaii on Tuesday when we got the word, about a half hour before we boarded the plane. And I was stunned. I was stunned because it's not that you don't expect someone who's 93 and has health problems to not pass away. That itself is not unexpected. It was that he had just released a statement the day before about not being able to come to Rickwood Field, but how excited he was to watch the game and all that. He just didn't mention where he was going to watch it from. So I guess he had ulterior motives, but I think he wanted a better seat from above or something. I don't know, but it was really weird how, it was heart failure. I didn't even hear that was what the final cause of death was. But so yeah, that can happen overnight, just all of a sudden in your sleep, whatever. But he'd been having a lot of health problems and mobility issues, and that's why he wasn't showing up to the park like he had been in the past. But at the same time, it looked like his mental state was still fine. He was still, cracking jokes and all that. I that's what was strange to me. It was like it was all building up this whole year to this celebration at Rickwood Field, specifically to honor Willie Mays and his kind of major league, I shouldn't say major, but professional baseball birthplace. He's from Alabama. That was where he first entered professional baseball with the Birmingham Black Barons, right? That's the first professional field he patrolled in center field as a 16 or 17-year-old. It was all celebration for him, and then he passes away, 48 hours before the game. It was just shocking to me. And in a way, I was really, really upset about it at first. But then I realized, actually, this might be a way to celebrate him even more. You know what I mean? Considering that he wasn't going to be there anyway. It's like it just put more of a magnifying glass on it. I think it drew more casual fans in to watch the game once they heard the news about Willie Mays passing. So in some strange way, I think it helped tell a lot of those stories that you guys were just talking about, and that they reached more ears and more of an audience. I'm trying to look for justification here, but some poetic justification. No. But I think, in the long run, maybe that helped. And it's also strange. He, wore number 24. He passed away in 2024 on June 18th. Those two numbers add up to 24, right? It's just odd. I don't believe in all those things. It's just weird coincidences, but you can add up any numbers and start making these conspiracy theories. But there's a little bit of poetry in that, I'd say. But Willie Mays, he obviously wasn't, quote, my favorite player because he did come before my time, and my dad was a baseball fan, but not a rabid Giants fan or anything like that. I was the one who kind of became that rabid Giants fan. I didn't inherit that from my father, and I was a big Will Clark fan at the time. Of course, growing up, that was my favorite player. But, obviously being indoctrinated with Giants, lore since I was a child, I would guess I was in my mother's womb when Willie Mays took his final professional at bat in October of 1973, because I was born in November of 1973. So I was almost there, right? There's just a little bit of overlap there. But no, it's crazy because in the years that we were able to cover the team, I never had a chance to speak to him directly because, number one, I was way too afraid because, I'm not just going to walk in a room and start talking to him. But it was really fascinating those times I was at the park when he was. It was generally him and Willie McCovey and maybe someone else who would be in that side trainer's room in the clubhouse. And they'd just be chatting away, talking about baseball stories and the weather or whatever. And there were a couple of times that I just happened to stop outside the door and listen in, just kind of spy a little bit on the conversations. And usually it was pretty inconsequential conversations. It's not like they were telling the most rich baseball stories 24 hours a day. They were just shooting the shit, basically. But that was like, I'm like, man, I'm standing next to two legends, two icons of Giants baseball, I was in Alaska, and I for a research thing way back in 1996, 97. And this is an old Air Force base way out in the Aleutian chain under Siberia. And they had this little library there. And I went in to go, browse the books, and I found the Willie Mays autobiography in there, published in whatever it was, 1970 something. And I start flipping through it, and in the back is a little signed note to the person who owned the book at the time with Willie Mays' signature at the back. And there's no reason to believe that it's not authentic because it says like, to Joe Bob, it was great meeting you, blah, 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 Willie Mays, right? And I looked at his actual signature and it's identical. So I have no reason to believe it's not his. Well, let's just say that book is no longer in that library. I have it.
That's wild. That's wild that
so now I have a signed
library.
Yeah, so now I have a signed copy of his autobiography. Not to me, but it's a signed copy. Just Willie Mays, man. The park's address is named after him. He's got the statue, the most iconic Giant and probably the best baseball overall, all around baseball player there ever was. And it's sad, but like you said, Willie, it's not sad like in a all of a sudden way. Like a Thurman Munson, a Roberto Clemente, a Tony Gwynn, a Roy Halladay, right? Whatever, where you're like, whoa. And this was like not unexpected at some point, just not expected 2 days before the game that was honoring him. So yeah, I hope I live to 93 for God's sakes. That's a great life. That's a freaking great life. What a career. And to think that he amassed all that, playing in the Negro Leagues a little bit, having 2 years of service for the Korean War in the Army, right? Like his stats he would have easily eclipsed 700 home runs. He probably would have had more than 715.
Well, the year he got back, he was MVP. If he clearly he was about to come into his own. I mean, it was his second year when he had to go, so he missed essentially what would have been his third year. Third year for that guy. I mean, yeah, he comes back the very next season and he's the MVP. Also, we win the World Series, by the way.
Yeah,
that year.
Of course.
But yeah, no, I mean, he hit 41 that year, so you got to think in those 2 years before that, if he gets those complete years, that's maybe another 65, 70 home runs easily, right?
Yeah, 1951 is his first year. He hit 20, right? In 52, right before he got drafted or called, he only played in 34 games and had 4 home runs. But like you said, after almost a full 2-season absence, he comes back and he hits 41, 51, 36, 35, right? 29,
that
34.
Was the period where he was the most prolific as a home run hitter. So was just those next 5-6 years.
There's no doubt he was short about 60 home runs just on the that. So that puts him at 720. There you go.
Yeah,
right?
That puts him above Babe right there. And then the Barry Bonds thing is very different when he's chasing his Godfather down.
I know. It's really crazy when you think about that. But anyway,
Hank might have still caught him, but Barry might have been
Hank
the first to pass. But Barry would have been the first to pass the Babe. That's what I mean. Willie would have been the first to pass the Babe.
Willie would have been the first to pass him, and then Hank would have. I mean, look, Hank was ridiculous for such a long time. 40 home runs like a year was like just locked in for that guy. Willie had a little more up and down with his home run totals, but he did have that period where he was a 40 home run guy pretty much. Towards the end, it was not so much, but even though he was a great power hitter, like that wasn't the only part of his game, right? Like he was just a hitter. He just 302 or 301 average for his whole career. Like, come on now. I actually, by the way, I had to adjust myself there because I think didn't he lose a point on his batting average when they added in like the Negro League stuff? I heard something about that. Like
that's got to be what happened because I've been staring at his baseball reference page.
It was 302, right?
It was my whole life. It was 302. I've had this argument 1,000 times.
Yes.
Mickey Mantle was better than Willie. No, Willie had a better batting average. It was 302. Yeah. Mickey hit like 298. Shut up. We were like 19 years old. We used to sit on my driveway and we used to bullshit about this kind of stuff. And we'd pull out the baseball encyclopedia, because it's the 90s, and try to, have this argument. That was part of what Willie did, though, is, I was 19 years old having this argument with other 19-year-olds about who the greatest ball player of all time is. And we're arguing about Willie, a guy who retired literally, 25 years before then, which is just
I know.
Amazing to think about it, but you're right. He had to have lost it.
I think somebody said that to me that once they added those in, he lost a couple of points.
So he did.
Mantle obviously didn't lose any.
If you look at his baseball reference page, I know exactly, Mantle. If you look at his baseball reference page, they added the 1948 season with the Birmingham Black Lions.
And he's like 19 years old or something like that.
He was 17. He hit 233.
Yeah.
He was 10 for 43. So that dropped his batting average by 1 point.
His batting average. So what's funny is, he talked, in his book, he talks about early on, he had like a lot of nerves, even though he was the most talented ball player on the field. And, he started his career like 0 for 22 or something like that, right? Until he finally hit a home run off Warren Spahn. Whatever. Well, it was terrible. It was terrible. But he talks about it, he was worried every day, like I'm going to get sent down. He was pressing and pressing and pressing. So he started off not the hottest, and then once he kind of got that self-confidence, that all turned around, and then he was just a monster from then on out. But Mickey Mantle, that's another number I always know, 298, because it's always like, damn, he didn't hit 300.
Yep. I just went and looked it up too, and I was right. You know, the funny thing, you mentioned 51. A little fun fact: Willie's first hit was a home run off a Hall of Famer, Warren Spahn. Willie's final hit in the 1973 World Series was a single to drive in a run in extra innings off a Hall of Famer, Raleigh Fingers.
Wow.
So his
Raleigh
first
Fingers,
hit
nice.
in the majors was off of a Hall of Famer, and his last hit was off of a Hall of Famer. But I got more of these, and I'll try to keep it short. Warren Spahn.
Sure.
Warren Spahn, in his induction speech into the Hall of Fame, apologized for allowing that first home run to Willie Mays because he unleashed Willie upon baseball. Willie was 0 for 12, and he went to Leo DeRocher. This is another famous story. He went to Leo DeRocher, and he loved Leo, and he went to Leo, and he's like, Mr. Leo, I don't feel like I'm as good as these guys. I don't feel like I can keep up. And Leo said, Willie, as long as I'm the manager of this team, you're my center fielder.
Yeah.
And then he went out and, became the godlike baseball player that he was. He went off on a tear in 51. They don't come back, and then amazing comeback without him. And then you already mentioned 54. Amazingly, 55, just looking at the stats, was a better season for him than 54. He didn't have as high of a batting average, but he homered more. He drove in more runs. His slugging percentage was, the best in the league. His OPS plus was about the same as the year before. So, but like those stories, like the Leo story, and listening, I don't know about you guys, but listening to them talk at Rickwood last night, Bob Kendrick, the Negro League Museum guy, he was fantastic. But like even Reggie, when he starts talking about Willie, he fell into the doing the Willie voice. Like nobody can resist doing the Willie voice.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Another famous home run off of Warren Spahn, by the way. 16th inning.
16th inning. Yeah.
I mean, come on. That game, that's one of those games that's just like legendary if you're a Giants fan. You hear about that and you're like, what? That does not make sense.
Something we'll never see ever
Spahn
again.
and Marshall the whole time. Yeah. They didn't put anybody in. They just let him keep going.
The Giants wanted to. I don't remember who their manager was. It might have been Herman Franks at the time. Might have been Alvin Dark. Apparently, Marichal just kept going to the other end of the bench so that he wouldn't get pulled out of the game.
You don't see me. You can't see me.
He was playing that game.
Keep going to the bathroom. That's hilarious.
Like, I'm not getting pulled
out. I mean, but just a walk-off. I mean, he just comes up in the 16th and just says, nope, we've had enough, and just walks it off. I mean, so they posted that stat in the Rickwood game that he was the only player to have a home run in innings 1 through 16. So apparently at some point he hit one in the 15th inning, which I don't remember, I don't know about, and a 14th inning and a 13th inning, and you know what I mean? That's insane. And the other one that he's the only player to ever done, they posted that stat, was 300 batting average, 300 stolen bases, 300 home runs. It was some like collection of stats where you're just like, it's at this point to be the only guy in anything in baseball to have done something. It's pretty crazy. He's got two of them, two things still. And we're talking, 60 years after he's done. So 51 years. Yes, there you go.
I mean, 24 All-Star games, which is tied for the National League record. But also there was a couple of times they had, more than one All-Star game.
2 a year for a while.
Yeah, for a few years.
But it would have been 26
MVP.
in 1952 and 53,
Probably.
Sure.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, he would play all 9 innings of pretty much all of those games.
Yeah.
He talked about in his book that back then the All-Star game was a very competitive affair. They took that very seriously. Nowadays it's more of a, let's go out and laugh and have a good time. But back then, I mean, obviously we all know about the Pete Rose bowling over a catcher in an All-Star game, and they go, okay, let's all relax.
Fossey. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Willie said like that. They took those very, very seriously. And I think also at the time too, the players didn't make a lot of money. So like getting to a World Series and getting a bonus, getting an All-Star game bonus, like these were significant upticks in the amount of money you were making. So these guys definitely took that stuff a little more seriously than we do today. I actually have here a bunch of fun quotes about Willie, and the one that I have the exact Warren Spahn one here. It was He was something like 0 for 20 the first time I saw him. His first major league hit was a home run off me, and I'll never forgive myself. We might have gotten rid of Willie forever if I'd only struck him out.
Sliding doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason we can all laugh at that is we all know that just wouldn't have been the case.
No, he was not going anywhere. Yeah.
Right. Obviously, he would have figured it out at some point,
Yeah.
And you bring up the stats, Chad, and it's cool that like he's the guy that has all this. But like, think about all the stories we tell. Think about all the memories people have. It's not necessarily of a specific stat. It's of watching Willie round second base, watching Willie run through the outfield with his hat flying off his head.
Mm-hmm.
Like things like we've known almost our whole lives that Willie wore a hat size too big so that he could run out from under his cap to make the play look even better. That was the joy of Willie, was the joy of baseball. Was just he loved baseball so much and he was such a showman that it was infectious. And we're so lucky that we got to have that as the pillar of our favorite organization.
I had heard a lot of stories like you guys had over the years, and I'm sure you guys heard more than I did, but because there were a couple of new nuggets for me, which you probably knew about. Now, I did know about him wanting to be and loving to be the entertainer, because Major League Baseball is an entertainment, right, product. It's showmanship, it's theater, it's all that stuff. So he routinely would make a routine fly ball look more exciting by going back on it so he could streak in on it. Things like that. Like you said, leaving his hat loose, right? Just the way he would run with his, hair caught on fire. I thought what was interesting was some of the strategies he used to employ. For example, if there was a pitcher who had a particularly, good pitch that he knew might be used as an out pitch, he would swing at it poorly on purpose early in a game, early in a count. So he would deke the pitcher into thinking that he couldn't hit that pitch. It might be a curveball or a slider, an off-speed pitch of some sort. So Willie Mays would break down his swing on purpose to look bad. So he knew that the pitcher would put that in the back of his mind going, later if he gets to a 2-strike count, I know he's going to rip out that pitch. So it gave him an advantage later in the game because he's like, okay, I'm 1-2. He's going to throw that slider, and he'd be all over it and surprise the hell out of the pitcher. Things like that I didn't realize that he did, which is another level of chess in baseball that when I played, I certainly never employed because none of us were ever good enough to do that. But something I never really even thought about. Make the pitcher think you can't hit this particular pitch early in the game, sacrifice a strike, or maybe even an out so that you could, better prepare and predict a pitch later when you know he's going to throw it to you with 2 strikes. I think that's crazy. That's insane. Like that's one hell of a ball player and one hell of a confidence level.
You can only do that kind of thing if you're so good that you know that you can hit the ball whenever you do need to. You know what I mean? Because wasting a pitch, we think about most guys fail most of the time in baseball.
Yeah.
Well, every guy fails most of the time. But yeah, no, you imagine like, damn, you're that good, and it was. The stories were kind of crazy about his late game heroics. Like he was maybe the guy who could just turn it on when he really needed to, There was many times where he was like on deck and then the Giants make the final out and we're like, man, if he got up, we were going to win this game, But yeah, he was that special. And yeah, in his book, he talks a lot about those little things. I mean, the basket catch, that was like his signature. Nobody was doing that. Nobody was like catching it in a weird way just because it's more entertaining for the fans, And that was his thing. He not only wanted to be the best, but he wanted to be fun to watch.
Even the basket catch though was designed to be the best. To him, he got better movement with his arm coming out of the basket catch than catching it over his head. He felt like he could get a better throw off and things like that. So, I mean, it's crazy that the showmanship just comes out of the smarts of what he knows works best for him, and it's so funny because, we talk about catches and, we all see the video of that catch where he and Bobby Bonds are coming together at the fence and Willie catches it. And I think that might be what he's referring to when he says there's better catches than the catch.
That's a hell of a catch. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was. I just love in the story about the catch, how he says I'm running towards the ball. I knew I was going to catch it. All I'm concerned about is getting it back into the infield.
Yeah,
So, like,
it's a tie game
even
in the World Series with a runner on
right,
second. So yeah,
a Hall of Fame player, Larry Doby, was the runner on second too. You know what I mean? It's like
hmm
the wherewithal. Just he had another gear that none of us had. Chad's story highlights that immensely with the swinging and missing at pitches. There's just something different about that man. And I mean, how lucky are we? How lucky are we that the Brooklyn Dodgers scout watched Willie play and said, "Oh, this guy can't hit the curveball. We're not going to sign him. He's too young. He can't do what it is we want." And then the Giants scout who went there to see a different player, I can't remember which player, might have been Monty Irvin for all I know, but came away going, "Oh my God, we have to sign this Willie Mays guy. He's the greatest guy
yeah.
ever." And immediately going to his aunt's house that night and getting Willie's name on the paper. I mean, it's just so fortunate that it happened that way. And one last thought I had is our whole life, at least growing up, Joe DiMaggio was considered the greatest living ball player. And I don't know about you guys, but I used to get sick of hearing that. And then when Joe D died, the mantle was passed to Willie Mays. And it was kind of cool for the last 20 years or so since DiMaggio died, having our guy recognized as the greatest living ball player.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they talked about it and did these, huge affairs where they called old players back, it was always Willie that they were talking about with reverence. I mean, we're so freaking lucky as Giants fans that we got to experience this. I mean, we're three guys that never saw him play, and we could probably talk another hour about this. And it's just such a testament to what kind of a person and impact he had.
I mean, that's when I was becoming a fan of baseball as a little kid. I mean, I remember this. It was like, oh, the Giants? Oh, we have the best player? Yeah. Hell yeah, we do. Just how awesome that felt to be able to say, yeah, we have the best player. The Giants have the best player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we also have the most wins. Let's be real. We're the best. We're just the best franchise. But that's just. It was just such a cool thing as a little kid. And when you bring up, the fact that the scout went there to see a different player, and then went to his house to sign him. That it's funny how different baseball is now. Like, that's not a thing anymore. Some kid nobody knows about in Alabama who didn't even graduate high school, who's playing in the Negro Leagues, and then you just find out about him because you had to see him visually. I mean, he obviously, like, this is like before a television era. There isn't video on every single kid. There aren't a bunch of stats that you could just pour through and figure out who the best guy is. You have to, like, physically see these kids in play. And so you're right. Like, our guy recognized the talent, and San Francisco, New York Giants at the time were the team that was able to pick up this legendary once-in-a-lifetime ball player. So really cool. And, he also did 4 years after Jackie broke through. And one thing they also talked about on the broadcast the other night was, kind of the beginning of the TV era in America and baseball games being broadcast on TV. He was there for. So in a big way, he was one of the first players that all of America got to watch. Everybody got to see him on TV. And I think in a lot of ways, like, his legend was much bigger for it because he was the best at that time by far, like way better than everybody else. And there were a lot of good players, obviously. There was also, like, Chad, you were talking, I think, on one episode about those old school home run derbies that they would do.
Oh,
He was one of the guys that we called in for those. Like, he was the guy at the right time in the right place and on the right team, and he made it work. And he he did not disappoint. So yeah, it's such a cool story, such a cool life. And I haven't read his autobiography in a lot of years, and I just went through my closet, found my old paperback copy of it that I've had for years.
nice.
And I'm starting on that thing this weekend, man. I can't wait to read through that book again. Like this, it used to be, like I said, when I was a little kid, I would get to the last page, and I would literally just turn back to the first page and just start again. I read that book so many friggin' times, and yeah, it meant a lot to me growing up. All of those stories.
Man, you're right. You guys are right. We could go on forever about Willie, and and everything. But just, fans out there, if you have any stories or anecdotes or times you met him or whatever, we'd love if you send them in, torchcast@gmail.com. You can send audio segments, whatever, and we'll read them on air. This isn't like the end of the Willie Mays celebration. So if you guys send us stuff, we'll read it in future episodes for sure, because he's always going to be there in our hearts and our minds, and always sitting there at 24 Willie Mays Plaza, greeting all the Giants fans coming in for years to come. So anyway, R.I.P. to the GOAT. That's all I have to say.
We should talk about how we felt about the Rick Wood broadcast, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
A big deal.
Yeah, no, let's do that. I got that next in the notes. I for one, unfortunately, I had to work late, so I was watching on my phone, but couldn't watch while I was driving home, and I haven't been able to watch the rest of the game. But the few innings I did see, and some of the pregame festivities, was really cool. I liked the moment where Willie Mays' son came out and just said, "Hey, man, let's give it up for my dad," and they started to chant "Willie, Willie, Willie." That was pretty cool. Came out there with Barry Bonds. And then just like you said, some of the stories they were telling during the broadcast was really cool. I loved the field setting. I know they totally renovated the field. They tilted it counterclockwise, like 5 degrees. They put in the old time fencing to make it kind of look like it was back in the day. That was a lot of fun. I think that was really cool. And then some of the guests that they had on, again, I didn't see the whole broadcast, but one of the ones that I was really intrigued about was, I forget his first name, but it was Gleason. It was he was Willie Mays' mentor on the Birmingham Black Barons.
Oh yeah, he was
Grayson.
Yeah,
the 99-year-old. Oh my! First of all, for 99 years old, he spoke great. Like he was like.
No, he was fantastic. But it was funny because at the end of his, they had several of these interviews with like really old time Negro Leagues players, and it was just funny because at the end of the interviews they'd be like, "I hope that was all right."
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, Ken Rosenthal was like patting his shoulder.
That was great,
yeah, that was great.
Yeah, we just wanted to hear anything you had to say, my man. So yeah, no, that was. So I will say at the beginning of the game when Jean Baptiste came out and did the whole musical performance, I got a little concerned. I don't know, Eric, how you felt about this, but because I watched the whole thing like on TV, sitting by myself, like just paying attention to every moment. I was a little concerned. I was like, oh no, are they going to make the Negro Leagues just seem like it was a big fun party all the time for everybody, and everyone was just dancing and singing spirituals the whole time? But that's not the case, thankfully. But that did feel like a little bit like, hey, that was good. It was fine. I understood that there was going to be a big musical number to kick it off, and I did think it was good. There was a couple awkward moments where they had these like dancers dancing in front of these like all 90-plus-year-old men, like most of them in wheelchairs, and I was like, that you don't need to dance right in front of them, do you? Like there was a little bit of weirdness to that. But when Reggie Jackson came out and did an interview where he was very, very specific with his language about the things that he used to get called while he was on the road as a young ball player, I was like, this is what people needed to hear about, because, there was a reason that league had to exist. And it was because these black players weren't allowed to play with the white players. And that was not a good, fun thing where everyone was playing music and, dancing all the time. No, that was a hard life, and like they didn't have as much money as the white players. They didn't get to stay in the nice hotels. Oftentimes they didn't get to eat at the nicer restaurant. They were dealing with the hardships, right? And obviously then when the color barrier was broken and they came and they joined the white players, there was even more crazy stuff there where it's like now, and Willie talks a lot about this in his book, going into a restaurant with the whole team and then being told him and Monte couldn't go into that restaurant, and luckily for him, he had a manager who would say, well, we're not eating here either, that kind of stuff.
Right.
This was not a big fun party for a lot of these players. They wanted to play baseball, and that's what they were there for, but they still had to deal with what America was like at that time. And I know a lot of people today want to act like racism just never really happened, and that's all just kind of made up. Those motherfuckers need to read Willie Mays' autobiography and tell me again about how racism it wasn't really the way people make it seem. It was, and I'm glad it did not get glossed over. I'm glad that was a major part of that broadcast. But I really enjoyed the whole thing. I loved when they went to the black and white and showed us the old camera angles
Yeah.
that they used to use. That was a really enjoyable inning. I kind of wish they'd done it a couple more times during the game, but that was a lot of fun. And I think once all was said and done, we lost the game. It was a good competitive game. Ramos hit another home run. There was some good moments. We got to see Brandon Crawford play. That was kind of nice. But the whole thing I thought was really, really fun. And I know, Eric, you texted us during the game. You said you were really enjoying it too. But I for one had a great time watching that. And good job, MLB, on that one.
Yeah, Fox and Major League Baseball did a great job. They really did. You touched on like all the big points of the game. I really enjoyed that music and that whole vibe at the beginning. I thought it really was a look into how Black culture was at that time. It was a whole time machine trip. It was all a trip. Like you felt like you were 70 years ago watching a game at that field. Like the players came away saying the same thing after the game. The ones who were in the game, they're like, it felt like we were transported back in time, which was just amazing. I think the most shocking thing to me was, and I learned this like talking to my wife and stuff, is the three of us, we've read a lot of baseball books. We've read a lot about Willie and Black players coming up. So we knew about all these, instances of, being told that they won't be served, you won't check into this hotel, things like that. But America got to hear a lot more about that. Reggie Jackson did a huge service to the baseball community. I mean, he said it at the end. It was the most stark thing, most unbelievable thing. He's like, I would have been hanging from an oak tree. And it's like crazy to hear a man say that, because it's 2024. And that's really how it was in the 50s and the 60s growing up. So I thought it was good for baseball fans to hear about that. I'm a little disappointed the ratings weren't as good as some of the other special games that they've done in the past. I thought the ratings would have been bigger, but I think it just goes to show you again that racism is still a part of America.
Well, also, it's the Giants and the Cardinals and not like the Yankees and the Phillies or something like that, which, it makes sense. But, I mean, we got two teams who are one team at 500, one team 4 games below. To a lot of people, they probably look at it and they go, I'm not watching. I don't care about those teams. But you are right. I think there's that part of it, too. It's like I think there's a lot of people in middle America who are going, a game to honor the Negro Leagues? Yeah, I'll pass. And that is still a thing.
Well,
there was a couple of fun little moments, by the way, that I thought like they did a really good job of like making sure that they captured all these extra little things. So the train tracks behind the baseball field. You guys have probably heard the story of Babe Ruth's home run, maybe that went 100 and something miles, and they said it's because it went to the train tracks. Well, they showed where those actually are to the field. And I don't care how many times they tilted it. Babe Ruth did not hit one onto a train. I'm sorry. That was like 700 feet from home plate. But these are fun stories, and obviously legends can grow. But, they really did do a great job of making it look like the old stadium.
Yeah.
The fact that you saw a baseball game with that few people in the crowd. There's no outfield seats at all. There's only one deck. I would have loved to have been there, man. I don't know. It just looked like such a great way to watch a baseball game.
That would have been a lot of fun. I don't know how the tickets were distributed because it has like a capacity of 8,000 people, so I don't know how that happened. But,
I think they're very specialized.
Yeah, exactly. And you touched on like, oh, they're celebrating the Negro Leagues, and that might have turned off some baseball fans. But what really ticked me off, and you just see this all the time. You guys were talking about how some people pretend that racism still doesn't exist in America, and obviously we all know it does. It was when Major League Baseball integrated the Negro League stats, which we just referenced with Willie Mays, batting average going down by a point, which was also funny, by the way. I was thinking like, well, didn't he hit at least one home? Nope, he didn't hit any home runs that year with the Black Barons. So he still is at 660.
Still
so
at 660.
Unfortunately, he did not benefit from a few extra home runs. I know it's social media, and it is what it is. You get crazies out there. It just really disheartens me when I'm part of these Giants fan groups, which are very toxic anyway. They're always, it was all fire Farhan and Gabe. Now it's all fire Bob Melvin and, get rid of Duvall and like these just knee jerk reactions, which just make me laugh so much. And these aren't trolls either. These are like people who are serious. But it was when the stats went in and people were having an aneurysm about this. Like an absolutely the quality play was horrible. This is crazy. There's players now that have bumped my favorite player down the list, and like it goes on and on and on. And it's like, oh yeah, like are your testicles hurting? Is your vagina hurting?
I'm
like
so sorry.
It's so weird to see people react in such a vitriolic way. It's like, look, these guys, most of them are dead and long gone. Your heroes, a lot of them are dead and long gone. It's okay. This is part of the integration of baseball. Those guys suffered by not being able to play Major League Baseball. And it's shown not only with statistics, but the fact that the highest quality Negro League players who integrated into Major League Baseball had similar stats to what they were in the Negro Leagues, which goes to show
they became
you,
superstars. These were superstars.
That shows you that the quality of play, it's not like they were hitting 600 in the Negro Leagues and then 200 in the Major Leagues. Their stats were very comparable, which tells you that the quality of play was comparable. Now, the baseball did cut it off, I think, after the 48 or 49 season, because there were so many of the Negro League stars that went to Major League Baseball that the quality of play did decline in the Negro Leagues until it faded away. So they didn't include 100% of all of the Negro League stats. They cut it off after several years. And so to me, Major League Baseball already showed the fans that, yeah, we're not getting every single at-bat from the Negro Leagues. We're just doing the core years where we had the Josh Gibsons and the Willie Mays and the others that were in there, right? And I think that's perfectly fine and a great way to honor those players and to give them a fair shake that didn't have any career or a very shortened career in Major League Baseball. So I guess I don't understand that perception that some people have, like this is like pissing on the sanctimony of Major League Baseball.
I mean, listen, if they want to talk about the quality wasn't as good, then they have to talk about the quality wasn't as good when Babe Ruth didn't have to face a single black pitcher. So
there you go. Exactly.
They probably just need to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean?
There's no Bob Gibson, or whatever.
Yeah, come on, let's be real. The quality was worse in both leagues because of the fact that you couldn't have just the best players. And today we get the best players from not only, the black and white American players, we get the best players in the world.
Yeah, now we got freaking Japanese looking Shohei Ohtani.
Exactly.
Australians dominating.
Sure.
Like it's weird.
South America being a huge part, and like the Caribbean. Like there were a lot of Caribbean players, in those eras, but and there is some talk that there were some black players who pretended to be Latin, maybe before Jackie got there, but this needed to happen. It's important. I think it's important for baseball to recognize that it has this kind of, negative history that went down, and a lot of legendary players who need to be recognized today. So I'm glad to see him in the record books, and those guys need to shut the hell up.
I love it. All right. Well, I know that Willie and I need to get out of here fairly shortly, but let's go ahead and hey, look, most of this episode was dedicated to Willie Mays, and obviously we just talked about the Rickwood Field game. So it's not like the Giants are on a 10-game winning streak right now, but let's go ahead and close it out. Let's just talk about how they have been doing. Unfortunately, the Giants did lose the Rickwood game. That's their third loss in a row. They're now 4 games under 500 at 36-40, fourth place in the NL West, 10.5 games back of the Dodgers, but only 1.5 games back of the wild card. But here's the weird thing about the wild card. As we approach, we're only 5 games shy, by the way, of the halfway mark. That's insane. We're almost halfway there. Unfortunately, I think this is the team that we have, right? I know we were really excited about a 90-win team, but they're going to have to play off their asses in order to get there. But the fact is, other than the Colorado Rockies, who are 11 games back of the wild card, and the Marlins, who are 11.5 games back of the wild card, every other team in the National League either has a playoff position leading their division, or they're within 1.5 games of the wild card. So you got 13 out of the 15 teams in the playoff hunt right now, which is insane, guys. Like, I don't remember that many teams being like within 2 games, 1.5 games of the wild card at the halfway mark. That's crazy. So, I mean, the good news, the Giants aren't far back. The bad news is that they would have to still leapfrog, 5 teams or whatever to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the toughest part is we're going to have to play well, and also some other teams not play so well. But I do think there's room for some stuff to happen at the trade deadline, depending on if we tank before then. Probably not. Probably a lot of just young guys starting to play. But and also there is some stuff that can still happen that's almost going to feel like a trade, which is some of these starting pitchers coming back. Because right now, after Harrison goes down, that's like this just a scary, scary thing to look at on our team, especially because some of the guys that we've had to kind of plug in, like the guy who pitched yesterday, Keaton Wynn, the guy's been abysmal all season. So if we could somehow not have guys like that be put into the starting rotation, that'd be sweet. But also, I will say this: our recent record looks pretty bad. But I think, Eric, you talked about it pregame. We're losing a lot of games by 1 run right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants, it's not like we're getting blown out. And the stuff about Duvall was hilarious to me because I'm like, he's only blown 2 saves, and people are like, that's too many. I'm like, okay. First of all, he hasn't had a lot of save opportunities, honestly, with this team. But 2, he had a horrible outing. And yes, he hasn't been as sharp as you would hope he could be. But you got to give a guy a little more rope than 2 blown saves before you start calling for his head.
I mean, it also raises the question: who the hell does anybody think is going to become the closer? The bullpen is the weakness of the team.
Yeah.
The reason
if
they're
you can
losing
find me another guy who throws 100-mile-an-hour cutters, I'm all ears. But
Eric Miller might be that guy, but the guy never throws 100 anymore. Like, if you look at these games that they're losing, it's the bullpen giving up extra runs that they're not able to recover from. Mm-hmm. And that's what the real biggest weakness has been of the Giants. Yeah, the offense stinks at times, but, I mean, they scored runs this week at Wrigley. They should have been able to – I mean, look at these last 2 games specifically. The bullpen let the lead extend, and therefore they couldn't complete the comeback. And if you're constantly playing from behind, that's going to happen. And that's what the Giants are. So like you said, Chad, they kind of are what they are. It'll be curious to see what happens when Ray gets back and when Cobb gets back and whether or not they do solidify a bullpen arm. And maybe they can trade away Michael Conforto to get Luis Matos some playing time. I don't know, just a hope.
There will be a glut there at some point. But also, we got to start winning. Jordan Hicks and Webb both have good ERAs and not great win-loss records. So there's something wrong with that. When you got guys who are pitching, who are giving you sub-3 ERAs, and they're 4-3 or whatever Webb is, like 5-5 or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these guys, they're not getting rewarded for going out there and putting good efforts together. So,
well, the Giants have had a couple of Logan Webb wins snatched out of the jaws of losses, or vice versa, right?
Yes, and it's the bullpen. Bullpen. Yes, remember that bullpen. But I mean, this is the thing. It's like right now our team is just a little short, and that's, I think, exemplified by the fact that we're always losing by 1. We made a lot of dramatic comebacks this season. But you can't do it every freaking day. Sometimes you got to go out there and win 3-0.
Tom Cruise is a little short. The Giants are Peter Dinklage right now. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. We got to get some 3-0 victories. You know what I mean? Like, come on. How about a nice 6-0 victory? How about just an easy cruise through win? We just don't seem to get those anymore these days. So I don't know.
It's why you guys named the podcast what it is, right? That's the whole point.
There you go.
2010, when Kipe coined that term, the Giants have just been like this. It's just they don't clobber teams at all. Everything is a pitcher's duel or whatever. But they're 10-11 one-run games. They're 5-3 in extras, 20-13 in day, 16-27 at night. 30-34 on grass, 6-6 on turf, 9-10 against the East, 7-6 against the Central, 13-13 against the West, 7-11 against the AL. I mean, it's like they're pretty mediocre and average in almost every. There isn't like this glaring hole in terms of the performance in these metrics, but it's the bullpen, man. That's and situational hitting. The runners in scoring position lately has been abysmal too.
Yeah. Those are two very
100%.
important things, though. So let's fix those, and then we'll see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But look, at least they have been entertaining, and there was a point in this season where I thought they were boring as hell, and that is at least turned around. And there's been a couple of signs from a few people. Obviously, Ramos has been quite a story, and if Soler starts hitting the ball like he's shown a little bit, that changes a lot of things. You know what I mean? And of course, we're missing some important bats as well. Lamont Wade, geez, man, that's a massive loss for us, and hopefully he's not going to be a problem health-wise the rest of the season.
No, I hope not. I don't know, man. This team keeps every time they suck me into thinking that they're better than they really are. Then they show their true colors, and I think that's been the frustrating part. And here we are, almost at the halfway mark. If they win 5 in a row, they'll be at the halfway mark, 1 game over 500, right? And that's not in itself is not that satisfying. It's better than nothing.
No.
But
sure.
I don't know. It is what it is. All right. Well, coming up, the Giants continue their series against the St. Louis Cardinals. This was actually part of a 3-game series, actually. First game being at Rickwood Field.
Yeah, weird to have a day off.
It's really strange, isn't it?
Day off in the middle of a series. But, hey, they have to travel. It's not that far, but they have to travel again. So, makes sense.
Yeah, they're going from Alabama to St. Louis. And now, of course, my browser. Oh, who's zipping up their pants right now? Then we.
I'm unzipping a blood pressure machine because I've got dizzy and almost passed out.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I mean, the Giants should not be. The Giants shouldn't be stressing you out this much, Eric. I'm sorry. That's
trust me, they're not. That's the funny thing. I've got plenty of stress in life. The Giants are the escape.
Maybe that's what happened with Willie Mays. He was just sick of the losses in Chicago, and his heart just gave out. Man,
he couldn't watch any more Giants baseball.
He couldn't do it anymore. He'll peace out. Two more in St. Louis, and then they come home next week for a midweek 4-game series against the Cubs, and then their last hosting of the Los Angeles Dodgers in June. This balanced schedule has just really messed things up in terms of those rivalries and all the West opponents, because this is the second and last visit by the Dodgers in June. It just still doesn't make any sense. But on the other hand, the Dodgers are so good and they're 5-1 against the Giants this year. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Just let's get it over with. Hopefully they clean up with worse teams at the end of the season.
There will be on Monday a pregame ceremony honoring Willie. There's a special guest throwing out the first pitch that they haven't announced yet, but it's got to be Barry or Michael Mays or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. But they will be honoring Willie again before the Cubs series gets going on Monday.
Yeah, and I assume they're going to be wearing those Willie Mays 24 patches on their chest the rest of the season. That's typically the traditional thing that teams do when someone of note in their franchise passes away. They'll wear that armband or patch the rest of the year. So, we'll see it, and then I might be interested in myself if they sell those online or at the Dugout store to pick up one and slap it on, 1 or 2 of my jerseys, because that'd be something to kind of, because I don't have 24 in the back of my jerseys, but that'd be a good way to kind of honor him, just put it right there in the front. But cool stuff, man. All right, well, that'll do it for episode 302, which I didn't even note at the beginning of the podcast. You can, of course, follow us collectively on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called, at TortureCast, individually, myself at ChadK21, Eric at 2OutHits with the number 2. And you can find everything at torturecast.com, like us on Facebook. And like I said earlier, if you have stories about Willie Mays, or even if you have any questions or any segments you want to send in, you can hit us up at torturecast@gmail.com. Before we get out of here, Eric, do you have anything going on with Giants Chatter?
No, we're not writing recaps as often because, it gets frustrating. You're watching, and then all of a sudden, oh, a 2-1 game is now a 7-1 game. Screw this, I'm going to do something else. So
I'm not going to recap this pile of crap.
Right? Yeah, it's exactly what happens. And Rob and I are the ones who keep messaging like, "Screw this, I'm not doing this."
Yeah.
But a little over a month from now, we will have our trade deadline live special again. So look forward to that. But just join Giants Chatter on Facebook.
Awesome. And then, Willie, got anything you want to talk about or pimp?
No, not right now. Just gonna be working my way through Willie Mays' autobiography again for the next couple days. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
looking forward to that. That's probably going to be most of my time. I got today off and tomorrow off. So I'm going to, and nice weather out here, I'm probably going to sit in the backyard and do that.
Yeah, nice. All right, for those of you that are interested in, I'm putting the 3 minutes that audio that Willie shared or recorded down at the Willie Mays statue a couple of days ago. So look for that after the bumper at the end of the episode. But after that, until then, we'll see you in about a week for episode 303. Hope you all have a good week. Go Giants. Abu.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.
Take two. My stepdad didn't understand what I was doing, but Willie Dills here from the Torture Cast at the Willie Mays statue. It is the next day, and there are kind of a lot of people here. It's not like a mob or anything, but a lot of people taking pictures, tons of flowers on the base of the statue itself, some candles. It's nice. It's sweet. It's somber, but it's not sad. It's, I guess you could say reverential. People are just kind of paying respects and talking about maybe memories or just, celebrating a man who did a lot for the organization, for baseball in general, for black baseball players, obviously, and maybe the best center fielder we've ever seen. It's just an interesting thing because it's not like Roberto Clemente, who died tragically, or even Tony Gwynn, I could say too, where unexpectedly. Willie Mays was 93. But it's just one of those guys, I just liked the fact that he was around. I liked the fact that he was here, that he existed. And I'm glad I'm here now to just kind of think about it. And now I'm about to cry again. Even though it's silly. But maybe it's not that silly. I don't know. He was an important person in my life. And to a lot of Giants fans. So today we're gonna think about him. And probably tomorrow too. And a lot of days after that. So Willie Mays, I love you. I think a lot of us love you. Torture Cast loves you. Eric and Chad love you. And again, this is Willie signing out from the Willie Mays statue the day after Willie Mays passed. And go Giants.